Welcome to the Echo Effect podcast, where we share stories of exceptional practices that result in extraordinary results. The stories shared on the Echo Effect podcast are about positively impacting people. The guests on this show are those who are either receivers or givers of the positive impact or exceptional practice and are telling their story to inspire others and remind us that although sometimes we don't realize it, we do make a positive impact. By speaking our stories and putting it out to the world, we create what I call the Echo Effect. I am Elaine Simpson, your host of the Echo Effect podcast, and today I am happy to announce that Dr. Jacobson is joining us today. Karen is also a good friend and fellow member of the National Speakers Association and serves alongside with me on the board of the National Speakers Association Arizona chapter. Karen is founder and CEO of Aligned Leadership Academy, which works with organizations to develop leaders and high-performance teams that are efficient, effective, and engaged. Welcome, Karen, and I'm excited to have you share your story with us. I think it's an incredible story and really echoes, no pun intended, the Echo Effect.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share the story.
Well, so give us a little background of who you are and how you kind of came to this situation that you were in.
This is something that happened years ago, Elaine, in my previous career when I was a practicing chiropractor and living back east in New York. And it was so impactful because it was at a specific time when I was also making changes in my life. That whole event that this is surrounding is actually what allowed me to shift and leave New York and move to Arizona and make some major life changes. But the story that I specifically want to share was something where I was on the receiving side of generosity of people that completely amazed me.
Okay, share.
I was in a car accident, and I was just about ready to start a brand new assistant in my office. And here I was, it was 5:15 in the morning in front of my gym, and I was hit head on. And wow. I end up in the hospital having surgery. I have 2 plates in my arms, a dozen screws. I had pins in my hand, and obviously as a chiropractor, can't really adjust anybody. I was hoping originally with a broken arm, it would be something like, oh, let me put a cast and, be in a cast for a few weeks. But this was a major ordeal. And I had a very busy practice. At the time, I was also the district director for Nassau County for the New York Chiropractic Council, which basically I had about 100 plus members that I was responsible for. And while I was in the hospital and word got out, they used a fax chain. Now, for those that don't know, it's kind of an email blast, but it was the old style because we had a snow chain with just, in case of emergency and anything that we might need, we just activate our chapter. Well, they activated not only our chapter because I was also on the board of directors at the state level. So I was a member of the board. I was the membership director. So they activated Nassau County, they activated Queens, they activated Suffolk County, like the whole area in New York out there. And people started lining up. I remember my 2 friends, Rick and Ken, were the ones that organized all of this, and they started making a list. And what they did is we switched days. They said, here, what we're going to do is we're going to switch your days in the practice. Because it was really a time where it was very typical that chiropractors were practicing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday afternoon, and Saturday morning. So Thursday was off and Tuesday morning was off. So there were some gaps and there were some openings. And they made a list. And immediately from the day, we did not lose one day. I shifted the practice, or they actually handled it with my new assistant that started that morning.
Oh my.
She helped them out, and they started making phone calls, switching the days, and the phone
calls to your patients?
phone
Or
calls
two?
to the patients,
Uh-huh.
lined them up for Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and came in shifts to take care of my patients. And it wasn't even just that, but the way the day would work, they would show up in my house, pick me up, drive me to the office because I couldn't drive. I had no car, and I had massive surgery. Um, Drive me to the office. I would sit in the room. They would take care of the patients. And then at lunchtime, they would either drop me off at my dad, which was not far from there, or bring me back home. And then the next person would come in the afternoon, pick me up, do the same thing for 3 months.
Oh my goodness. So let's back up for a second, Karen. How did this all come? I mean, you're in the hospital and maybe being discharged or whatever, but I mean, did they sit down with you and say, hey, Karen, this is what we want to do? I mean, to take and do this wasn't something that just quickly happened. I mean, it did physically quickly happen, but they had to have thought it out. I mean, how did they approach you on this, and what went down?
So it wasn't really more of like, I'm asking you what to do. It was more, and it's something that, especially by the way, with the council, the group of chiropractors that we had been so tight that it was a given. It was a
Mhm.
given. It is a colleague in distress, and we're going to go and help her. We're going to line up. I mean, there were 20 different chiropractors. Several of them came more than once.
Wow.
But if you think about it, 20 different people. And in the span of the 3 months, I remember there were 2 shifts that were not covered in 3 months.
That's
And those
incredible.
shifts, there was somebody that I ended up paying they found somebody and said, here's somebody that you can, would do a shift. And I had two. So the thing is, it's not only they took care of it, they made sure that I never had to worry about losing financially. They made sure that I was taken care of because it was, they came, they picked me up, they adjusted me. I was getting adjusted regularly. I remember going to my surgeon and he goes, I've never had a case like this because of the fact that the healing that I achieved on so many different levels impacted what I was doing and how I was coming back from the accident itself. Now, it ended up in a situation where because I had so much rehabilitation and I literally had to learn how to write over again. I
Wow.
couldn't use my right hand at all.
How long did that go on that you couldn't use it?
I was actually on disability for almost a year.
Wow.
But those 3 months, what they did, and that brought me to the decision because at that time when I knew that it was going to take longer, it was okay, I need to find another solution because this cannot go on indefinitely. And I had come out to Arizona, took a look. I said, I'm making a life change. And I decided to move out here to Arizona. And during that time, I had somebody that I had said, put the practice, you know, on the market for sale. Actually, one of those 20 chiropractors ended up buying my practice
Oh, wow. Okay.
because they felt so comfortable being in the environment when they were supporting me and helping me during the time when I was injured that they're like, I love her people. I'm going to just, buy the practice. So all of the solutions came from that group.
Wow.
And I remember when I left, I took everybody out to dinner and I had bought these tiny little pins, angels,
Aw.
because they were my angels. They took care of me. That the camaraderie, the support was, to this day. I mean, these are lifelong friends,
Right.
but the generosity and the readiness to step up to the plate. And I will tell you, I said, I do know that as an example in the National Speakers Association, we've seen acts like that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's actually one of the reasons why I was so excited to join the National Speakers Association, because I saw that type of camaraderie exists within our own people,
Yeah,
within our community.
absolutely. Absolutely. So the group that you from New York, the chiropractors group, had they done something like this before or anything else like this for any other members? Or, I mean, was this traditionally something they would do, or was it just something new and it needed to be done, so they did it?
It was really something that was new. There's always been situations where, hey, can you cover my practice if I'm going away, or, you know, if I was sick, but really a situation where one of the members had such a crisis. And in this situation, I wasn't just a member. I was, you know, I was on the board, so I was contributed. And when you look at how you do things and how people pay it forward, you know, I served on the board because it felt right.
Right.
I didn't serve because of the fact that I knew that I was gaining anything, you know, direct from that. But I served on the board because it was right. I ran a district because it was right, because I was passionate about giving and serving. And that came back tenfold in a way that I never could have expected.
It's the echo effect.
It is the echo
Right?
effect.
Right. So going back to, you know, that tragic day when you were hit head on, you're in the hospital. I mean, did you think about your practice? And I mean, there had to have been a lot of different thoughts going on in your head, you know, personally, you know, how am I going to make a living? What's going to happen? I mean, what, you know, if you can remember, because it was a while ago, what was your biggest concern or fear when you were in the hospital?
So it actually started before that, because I very vividly recall the sentence that went through my head when I kind of came to. So I don't really recall the accident itself, but I do recall that when I came to, I felt immense pain.
I can imagine.
In my right arm. And somebody was knocking on my window, because apparently right next to the gym there was some other business, and the guy there, one of the guys, was actually an EMT. So he came and he was knocking on my window and opened the car door. But the first thought that went through my head was, oh my God, I broke my arm. It's a Wednesday. I have a new assistant starting today. How am I going to run my practice? You know, there might have been a couple of words in there that we don't put on, you know, that I remember a word that I had said that came into my head, which starts with an S, ends with a T. And I'm like,
I'm sure I would have thrown a whole lot more words in there, so.
No, that's actually, you know, it's funny because it was really a funny situation, because I remember later on when I shared that at, I was a member of a Kiwanis, which is a service organization. And when I came, one of the members picked me up. It was the week after the accident, after I'd already had the surgery. I was in a cast up to here. I had pins, things coming out of my hand. And he came, and Tom came and picked me up at the house and took me to a Kiwanis meeting. They needed to see that I was okay. Because the guy, the body shop that towed and took the car was across the street from where we had our meeting. And when they saw the car, people were afraid to call.
Oh my.
They did not know. I actually never saw the car. I saw pictures.
Okay.
I was in an SUV.
Okay.
I was in a Pathfinder, and I talk about the fact, you know, talk about an effect. I was in my Pathfinder traveling west. I got hit head on and stopped by a U-Haul that I found out later on was registered in Phoenix, Arizona.
Ironic.
And I get to the hospital, and the surgeon pulls up the X-rays, looks at it, and he goes, "It's a clean break."
Well, that's good.
4 months later, I was living here in Arizona.
Wow.
So it was even that in itself was impactful, and there was an effect from the accident itself. But I remember, you know, going to the meeting, and even there, everybody was just so supportive and really just, how can we help you? What can we do? Can I take you food shopping? Can I prepare something for you? I mean, I couldn't function. I'm
Right.
right-handed, and
Right. So given what you experienced, how did that change you? I mean, did you look at your fellow citizens and your loved ones and your family and friends and go, because of this act, I now realize that this is needed, or I need to change my behavior or enhance my behavior based on your experience?
one of the things that I will say, and I remember saying this um, about the accident and talking about how grateful I am, and somebody said, that when I kind of put all the pieces together and talked about the accident and talked about how I see things and how it can make changes for the future, and the fact that it also made me realize, because the result could have been very different, could have been a lot worse. We, could have had a very different conversation, if not having a conversation at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it also made me realize, Elaine, that I'm here for a reason, because I walked away.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walked away from that, being so grateful that whatever happened was all that happened. And I moved out to Arizona, and I fought, on so many levels, especially physically. It was a major challenge to go back into practice. I
Mm-hmm.
had to change my techniques because, physically there's certain things that I could not do the same way anymore. Um, but it gave me, at the time, going back into practice, it gave me even a bigger vision. And when I moved out to Arizona, my practice, I created a practice at a certain point, was even larger than anything that I had created back in New York.
Wow.
But it also deepened my on certain levels, deepened my trust and my faith in the fact that, when you're in a head-on collision and you walk away, and okay, I broke my hand. There's certain things that I can't do. I'm never going to be a weightlifter, a major weightlifter, and I'm not going to push, hundreds of pounds. But I'm here.
Right.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm grateful, and there's a reason that I'm here, which means that there's more work that I need to do. And now the thoughts are, in the things that I do, how can I pay that forward?
And so how are you paying it forward? How are you creating that echo effect?
I believe that I've been given the opportunity to share some of my experiences and the lessons that I've learned. Though that was not the only time that I faced adversity.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Israel. I spent years in a war-torn country. I knew how to. I learned how to cope with that situation, how to cope with terror. I think that especially now, in times where there is so much turmoil and so much fear with people, because we're dealing with so much uncertainty, with so much unknown, my skill sets and the strategies that I've learned and that I've developed from growing up under those circumstances and those conditions are ones that really support me, especially when I work with companies. My mission right now is to be able to share some of those with people so that they can have some peace of mind, so that they can also learn how to center and how to deal with all the uncertainty and with the turmoil that's happening around us without losing hope,
Mm-hmm.
without living in constant fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because, from the point of view, when I step into my doctor hat, living in constant fear is destructive to the immune system and destructive to our health.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't just affect our mindset and our behavior, but it affects our well-being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you do today physically? I mean, you said that physically you were impacted because of the accident. Are there things that you do today that you didn't do before? Like, did you take up a different hobby to compensate for not being able to be a weightlifter or something? I mean, I know that was your long, like your long time
Yes.
dream there to be that heavyweight lifter, But
Yes, superstar heavyweight lifter of the world. I actually, a number of years back when I moved out here, I it was an impetus after I had done a mission in Panama, and some of my friends, there were 96 of us, 96 chiropractors, and we did a volunteer mission to Panama for 11 days,
oh
and
wow,
we took care of about 250,000 people, actually 222,000 people
oh my,
in a week, and had a whole group. There was a bunch of my friends that danced, and I learned how to. And I love Latin music. Learned how to
uh-huh.
dance salsa, and so back in 2004, so it's now going on 15 years. I picked up Latin ballroom dancing, and I dance well, amateur, but competitive amateur.
Okay, okay. So, and that was the result of the what happened with the accident and things like that, correct? Or is that before?
Not really, because I look at the accident. The biggest shift in the accident was the ability and the shift moving from moving from New York to Arizona.
Hmm.
Having to, I mean, I fought my way back. I used to practice a tremendous amount of yoga. I will say that that's a challenge for me at this point. I can't
Hmm.
do handstands, and I can't do, you know, anything that's going to require putting a tremendous amount of weight on the arm. I had at a certain point, I remember when I was having some challenges, and I ended up meeting with the surgeon, and he said, well, what we could do is take the plates out. And I said, what would that require? He goes, well, that would require another surgery and another 10 weeks of rehab. And I'm like, no, I
Hmm.
lost one practice. I'm not going to do it again. So I'll deal with the limitations so that I can continue to do my work and not have to go through that again. So, when I lift weights, I do modify. There are things that I
Hmm.
can't do, but if you want to look at the echo effect of the accident itself and the impact that it had spiritually and emotionally, was about really going out and living my best life, even more so than I've ever done before.
Right. Hmm.
So, you got to bring joy into your life. You got to
Hmm.
dance. You got to sing if you can. And then if you can't, then
Or
do
in the
it in the
shower.
shower. Yeah, in the shower, in the car, wherever it is.
Hmm.
So dancing became, it's one of my avenues of bringing joy
Hmm.
into my life. And I've learned to actually be able to share that with other people through competition. And I remember years ago, I had a competition here in town. We were at the Ritz Carlton, and it was one of those places where, open night and bring it to Latin night. You could bring everybody. I had 25 of my patients and my friends
Wow.
that showed up to see me compete. Um, and one of them literally had a brand new camera. I have a book that she took like a little documentary of that evening of the competition, and it was one of
Oh,
the best gifts that I've ever received from anyone in my entire life.
well, I definitely want to see that.
Yes, you
You've
got to
been
see
you've
that.
been hiding it from me. So, Karen, you moved from New York to Arizona. Why Arizona? I mean, I know you wanted a clean break and such, but why? I mean, there's a lot of other places besides Arizona.
Interesting enough, I'd always been drawn to Sedona, and before I even had the accident, I came out to Sedona. I took a trip. I like to do things on my birthday and check things off my I don't call it my bucket list because I'm not planning on kicking for a while, but to check off the list of experiences, and one of them was Sedona. And I came out here. Actually, it was the year before I did the Panama mission, before the accident, and I just had this magical time. There was a planetary alignment, and I got to work with my Native American shaman, and I got to see all these beautiful things. And 3 months later, I came back and got a license out here. It was about a year later when I had the accident. So things were actually in place before. I already
Okay.
had an Arizona license before I chose to move out here. When I had the accident, I was actually going through a period of time where I knew I wanted to leave New York. And it was more like, where do I want to go? And I wanted to go, originally, I was like, I want to go somewhere where there's a beach.
So you choose a desert.
Yeah, so I
There's
chose the
sand.
Yes, yes. But I'll tell you something that's really interesting, because when I came out here to visit and I visited Sedona and I left, I felt like I was leaving home.
Oh.
And it wasn't until later on, a few years later in practice, where one of my patients came up to me and he goes, he always used to love to bring in these trivia questions. And one of the trivia questions was, he goes, okay, there are 3 states in the US that are on the same latitude as Jerusalem. What cities are they? Now, I knew Houston. I don't know why and how, but I knew Houston was. Apparently, one of the other 2 is Tucson.
Oh, I did not know that.
I didn't know that. But then certain things started making sense to me. Because Jerusalem, when you look at where it is on the map, it's about 2 hours southeast of Haifa, which is where I lived when I was in Israel. So reverse the direction, go 2 hours northwest, you hit Haifa. What is about 2 hours northwest of
Well,
Tucson?
that would be Phoenix.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Which made so much sense that when I moved here, this is the only place where I actually bought a home.
Oh.
And it felt like home. And when I remember somebody said, well, why didn't, if you love Sedona so much, why did you go live in Sedona? I said, because Sedona is my getaway. It's my sanctuary. You don't
Right.
live in your sanctuary unless you're a priest or a priestess.
Right.
Not my thing. But you go there to rejuvenate and recharge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I live, and it's really interesting because, as an example, my mom, she still lives in Haifa. I think about it when I have a conversation, if I do a Skype call with her, and God bless her, she can figure out Skype at 91.
Oh, bless her heart.
We're on the same latitude when we're having a conversation.
Nice.
My sister lives about 20 miles south of there. We're really still in the same zone.
Mm-hmm.
So on a large scale, we're still connected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I never realized that. I mean, that's kind of a different approach to looking at something like that, but that makes a lot of sense. So, Karen, what do you see going forward with your life? I mean, you're now a successful speaker and consultant. You're not doing the chiropractic business or practice any longer, but where do you see yourself in the next, 5 or 10 years, using the experiences that you had and the kindness of others that have brought you to where you are today? How do you see throwing that out into the future, and how would that impact you, and where will you be because of it?
On the side of the service, as you mentioned, we both serve on the board for the Arizona chapter for the National Speakers Association. I also run the candidates or the aspiring speakers program, which I feel very passionately about that.
And you do a great job with it too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. As that's part of my give back.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about paying it forward. And I believe that, we all pay forward. Some pay forward regardless of what it is. I'm very intentional in my actions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I pay forward in certain areas where I feel passionate about. And that's one of the areas. I know that in my journey, when I transitioned from chiropractic and started building my speaking platform, and there's so many areas where you end up getting lost, and there's so many people out there that want to help you, but don't necessarily have the right idea, or they attempt to put you in a little box that fits their program.
Mm-hmm.
I really focus in the work that I do in listening to my clients, listening, whether it's an individual, whether that I'm doing, executive coaching with, or whether it's a company that I'm working with. I want to know what the specific challenges are that they are dealing with, so I can, with my tool set, with my strategies, with my skills, can help them create a very specific plan. So when I'm working with, especially like with these candidates, I want to help them with their specific needs and their specific challenges, and not just give, well, here's a program that I have and fit yourself into it.
Right, right.
So I take the same approach towards everything that I really do in life. And I will continue to serve our profession and really expand as far as my business, you know, as I move it to the next level. Now as all of us have really had to, we're expanding more into the virtual world, be it getting our certifications, tailoring. I've been tailoring all of my programs so that any program can now be offered live, virtual, or hybrid. And the beauty in that is that we're looking at what the world is dealing with, what the world is facing. And now more than ever, I really feel that some of those skills that I've learned, that I've gained growing up in Israel and being in the service, really serve me more now. So I'm super excited because I'm working on that in the background and unveiling some new material, some new things that directly relate to that. Because I will tell you that, in light of some of the things that we've had here in town in the last several days, there was some information that came out over the weekend with some potential threats, and seeing certain levels of violence 10 minutes from my home brought back, for the first time for me, brought back some fears. Fears of growing up when I grew up in war and terror.
Right. I can imagine.
And what it did, Elaine, was looking at, okay, do I go into the fear or the terror? Or do I figure out, what did I do in the past to move past it? What can I do to activate my own skill sets in that situation and rise above? And there was something that completely hit me with that, about being able to rise above and bring that forward. Literally sat with my branding expert and we storyboarded that the day before yesterday. So I've got some brand new stuff, and that's the stuff that I'm bringing to the people, because what we are experiencing now are things that we've never experienced here in this fashion.
Very true.
And so to be able to bring that, and again, as I stressed earlier, to be able to bring that information and pay it forward and share it with people that don't have those skill sets. That's part of how I see, where I'm growing and expanding, and really bringing a message of, I'd love to say that we could bring a message of peace.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
No.
But to really help people find some center and some resilience and peace within themselves, to act from a place of strength and power rather than a place of fear. Because personally, I believe that fear of unknown and ignorance is what is igniting everything that's happening and has been happening in our world over several years, bringing us to this point. And I see it as a breaking point. So the change has to happen. And I really believe that I've been prepped to kind of lead some of that change.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. I think, the fear and the ignorance, misunderstanding, all the things that are contributing to the numerous things we have going on right now. It needs to change from fear to power and strength and fortitude and, wanting to resolve the issue, not just fighting and
bringing back humanity.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but, to bring it full circle, we're talking about creating a community and enhancing the community that we have with our fellow humans, not just citizens of the United States, but across the globe, to create that community, and that same type of community that stepped up and helped you when you needed it. I mean, the community that we need in the world today is one that's going to step up to help those that need the assistance, need the help, need the hope. And that's why I like your message, because it's perfect for what we're going through right now. Is, we pretty much all been hit head on with everything that's going on right now. And in order for us to survive as a society, we need to all step together and start taking each other's appointments and helping each other with groceries and, driving each other to wherever it needs to be, whatever it is. That's what we need to do as a society. And that's what creates the echo effect. And I think your story is an incredible story, and you've got great, I've known you for years, and some of the things you've been through, are amazing to me, and you're an amazing woman. And I'm grateful that we have become friends and that you have encouraged me, helped me with some of the things I've gone through. And if ever I can be of help for you, I'm here for you.
I will echo that.
Oh, thank you. All right, everyone. This has been a really great episode of The Echo Effect. Karen, you are an incredible woman, as I said before, and thank you so much for joining us. If you, our audience, would like to be a guest or know someone that would be a great guest and share their story or stories, please email Brandy Bean at B as in boy, EANE at yourechoeffect.com. Again, that's B as in boy, EANE at yourechoeffect.com to schedule your story interview. Thank you and have a great day.